It's a great pleasure to be in front of you, and thank you for organizers for inviting me. I'll try my best. So, in terms of outline, I'll talk about my teaching experience. Last year, I taught the data analysis course using AI, and also my experience using AI in quantitative and qualitative data analysis. So I'm more of using both in my project. So it's sometimes mixed methods, or sometimes separately, quantitative and qualitative approaches. So of course, before I start, just few ethical considerations. So this one I took from Elsevier regarding use of artificial intelligence in writing and research process. So of course, here it says that AI can be used, especially when it comes to writing, only to improving readability and language of the work, but should not become an author. Yeah, so that's most important part. Of course, when applying artificial intelligence, it should be done with human oversight and control. So that's a must, yeah, because AI can generate incorrect or biased output. And concerning today's, maybe my topic, the AI and AI-assisted tools can be part of the research design when it comes to data analysis. Especially in clinical research, yeah, it's sometimes nowadays is used to analyze images, and it's even showed very good results in assessing the X-rays, for example. But of course, how you use the AI in your research process, especially in data analysis, should be well documented and presented to the readers. So that's an important part. So mentioning these ethical considerations, I want to go further. So first, I want to share my experience concerning the use of AI in data analysis. So in the last year, I had a course for one section, for one group, data analysis for business and economics. And for this course, I decided to do some experiment. Good thing that SDU allows us academic freedom. So I took a chance, keeping the learning outcomes the same, not affecting the learning outcomes, of course, by itself, but I have applied different teaching methods. So basically, what I did is I used a pair of ChatGPT and Python. Python, of course, can be a bit difficult to install on the laptops, computers, so I went with a Colab, so it's an online Google Colab, which is basically Python. So in the beginning so I had like 3-hour sessions every week. So I usually start with a short lecture on statistical tests. So for example, one week I explain correlation and regression to senior students, bachelor level, and those were like a business students. Very few had some programming background, but most of the students had no programming background and only took statistics course, I think, in the second year. So many of them had already forgot some basics of statistics. So of course, to remind about statistics and those tests and how we use them, what are the parameters, and giving some real-world examples. So that was a very short, maybe 30 minutes a lecture maximum. And after that, I gave them assignment. So I provided students with data and real-time business problem or some social problem. Sometimes it's real problem, sometimes it was like an imaginary problem. And then I gave 30-40 minutes to students to solve the problem. So they had to generate a hypothesis themselves. So I wasn't given even hypothesis. So based on the data and based on the problem, students had to formulate hypotheses themselves and then test it using data and statistical test, of course, using ChatGPT and Python. In the very beginning, I was very surprised that I would say some 20-30% of students did excellent job. like all parts of assignments were complete, like, and maybe 70% of students did 80% or almost got a good or right result. So it was quite a success, especially in terms of if we take into account the students didn't have any programming. Most of the students, at least, didn't have any programming background. Then some of the students, selected students, presented on how they solved. So sometimes I called the students, sometimes especially those who finished first, and sometimes those who were left behind, they were presenting and explaining what hindered their progress. So different students, few students presented each class. And after that, I was giving some feedback and providing my solution, alternative solution. Also, interestingly, students have done assignments in different ways that, for example, was done maybe by me, and they use different prompts. In some cases, it was a bit longer. In some cases, it was even faster. So, I mean, creativity played a role here, and we achieved the results. On the QR, you can see here as well QR, you can see the one of the assignments that I gave to students. I don't know whether you can use your phones and follow the link. So this was one of the assignments, and my Facebook post with more explanation of about it, what students have done. So I was very impressed in general by the progress of students, and in this case I followed 2 years ago we hosted Sugata Mitra. He is well-known like IT specialist, scholar, and also educator, who wrote one of the renowned publications is called The Hole in the Wall, and he had quite a lot of TED Talks. You can listen to him also, Sugata Mitra, Professor Sugata Mitra, and he said, like, even in kindergarten or school, primary school, you don't need to teach students, kids. You just need to pose the right question, and they will find answers themselves. They will learn themselves. So basically, I used his method, just giving very basic information and then giving a problem to students, and using ChatGPT and Python. I mean, they solved this problem very well. So that's one of my experiences using ChatGPT for teaching purposes. I'm just checking my chat just in case if everything is okay. Okay, so here's the assignment itself. So visualization, that was one of the week. It was assignment during these 3 hours. So this is my part, and most of the students, they did something similar, I would say. So, for example, myself, I did it in 40 minutes, combining ChatGPT and Python. Though I don't have also much knowledge, or very basic knowledge of Python. I know not much. So first of all, I generated code for Python in ChatGPT to get data set itself. I didn't have access to real data, though hopefully we will have access, because now we are working with a government agency who has a big database, and we are implementing one project on school enrollment forecasting. So that's I implemented here. I just generated data for different regions in Kazakhstan. So red means school capacity is lower than number of students in that region. So after the data was generated, I generated code in ChatGPT for Python to visualize data, to make it visual on the map, and calibrate the code in Python to make sure the pins appear on the right places. Of course, students did the same, and I would say most of the students get the right result. So normally, without artificial intelligence, this kind of visualization will take days. And in terms of course, challenges, there were some challenges, especially data generation itself. I mean, here I tried to make it more real data and coordinates, because ChatGPT has sometimes wrong coordinates, so you have to feed some data, make it learn about the coordinates, and calibrating. But of course, doing all of this, mostly you learn Python. So it's if you have basic skills and you are trying to do this kind of more sophisticated visualization and other tasks, it's kind of learning by doing and makes it much faster, learning itself much faster. So this is regarding the teaching. When it comes to, of course, biggest challenges that I came across during the teaching, it was the formulating of problem hypothesis. So students mostly struggled with not generating code and working with Python and making a statistical test, because ChatGPT explains everything, like what is test, the parameters, and which test is more like suitable, and every step giving the formula sometimes, like so. But the formulating the problem and hypothesis itself was a struggle for students. And of course, providing right prompts for AI. So most of the students that lagged behind, it was due to the, wrong prompts to AI. So of course, that's a thing, like those who already know things, those who are highly productive, they will achieve even higher productivity with AI, which may lead to inequality, because those who are not using AI at all, or like they will not achieve those productivity results. So that's one of the issues maybe in future with AI leading to inequalities. So when it comes to data analysis in research projects, so let me show you some examples that I'm currently widely using in my projects, especially when it comes to preparing and cleaning data for further analysis. Of course, you can do analysis using Python and ChatGPT. The other thing where AI is very helpful is preparing and cleaning data. So here's one example when I used Numerius.ai. It's another AI tool which is add-in for Excel, Microsoft Excel. So I was doing some research on commercialization grants. So each year we have more than, last year I think, if I'm not mistaken, we had more than 300 applications for grants, and more than 100 grants were distributed for commercialization. So each grant is around 350 million tenge. And I wanted to see in what areas you have more chances, whether it's in IT, agriculture, food and agriculture, or energy, environment, or material sciences, where people receive more grants. And I have only information about the titles of the projects. I didn't have access to full information, so I have only titles of more than 300 projects. So because AI, especially these days, generative AI is very good in text mining, in understanding text. So the Numerous AI helped me to, of course, first I had to use ChatGPT and then Numerous AI, and it helped me to generate the categories. So I had 10 categories of different fields, and I can see I can categorize data according to these categories. Also, some of you are maybe already very active researchers, and you do surveys, and in surveys sometimes we had this other, другие, and people write their own comments. And for example, here I took an example of associate professor. It can be written in different ways. Associate professor, like assistant professor with a big capital letters, assoc.prof, docent, assoc professor, with some shortened versions. So, and of course, when it comes to Excel, it's quite difficult sometimes when you have 10 versions of the same word for counting it and cleaning this data or preparing this data. So ChatGPT and others, they do excellent in this job. Of course, always you have to recheck and whether it's correct, but rechecking is much easier than doing it manually or otherwise. Another example that I want to share, it's mostly related to qualitative data. So of course, when it comes to qualitative data, sentiment analysis. Of course, sentiment analysis is somewhere in between, I would say, between qual and quant. But still, it's more of text mining technique. and I also checked it, but currently I haven't used it for my project, but I used it as part of my teaching, and also I tested how it works, especially on social media comments. So there are some Twitter comments, and they are quite, I would say, complex in terms of they're very short and they use a lot of jargon, but more than 90% of what, for example, ChatGPT was doing when you upload those commands and ask for sentiment analysis, it's done very well, I would say. Especially in English, it can understand jargon. When it comes to qualitative analysis, especially, let's say whether it's literature review, qualitative systematic literature review, or interview data, yeah, of course, ChatGPT and other AI, I'm not sure that they can do a proper coding for now, but when it comes to identifying themes and providing an alternative opinion, I think it's quite useful. Especially when it comes to systematic literature reviews. So usually we advise our doctoral students to make a table like where you have source, purpose, methodology, and findings. When you are reading maybe 30, 40 papers, it's usually great to have this kind of table, Excel table in front of you. So programs like ChatGPT, ChatPDF, when you upload articles and they provide some summaries, and of course you have to read those articles, so you have to look and check, but this kind of tables are always, useful to see the big picture. Or interview data, of course, when you try to upload interview data and try to look at the themes, the AI provides those themes, provide some analysis. However, here there are some cautions. I also put the QR also to the website. I'm running a Telegram channel on methodology, like where we have seminars. Sometimes we do seminars on use of AI. On how to use AI do systematic literature reviews, how to use AI for writing purposes. So, but here's a caution itself, like always rechecking, of course, the results. And especially when you are doing interview data, some kind of thematic analysis, you should treat it as an alternative opinion only, not as treat it as some assistant that provided you alternative opinion. And of course, do not upload any confidential information about participants or whatever. So it should be only data that is like if you have promised confidentiality to your participants, then you have to fully make sure that there is no information that can lead to identification of the participants that you upload to any AI platform, because there are privacy issues and this data can be breached, so there might be some issues. So that's I would say the very, very big thing that you have to be careful about. So another, maybe for qualitative analysis, another caution is that when it comes to this kind of analysis, understanding context, the AI may not understand the context. Yeah, it's trained, like big platforms, they are trained on the data, but overall data, but they do not understand context of Kazakhstan or the context of your study, so it's impossible to do. But the importance of context in qualitative research is, it's the most important thing, yeah, that makes it different from quantitative, that helps your interpretation, that makes it more authentic. And also we say cultural competence is very important in qualitative research, so you should understand context, the cultural things. Of course, that's missing. So that's missing in artificial intelligence platforms. You can only partly solve it. Of course, these solutions are not so great at the time. For example, ChatGPT, OpenAI provides GPTs. So you can create a GPT and upload the documents that are related to the context first, and then upload your, for example, interview and other data, and the results will be a bit more relevant to the context. Or custom trained model. But of course, custom trained model will be quite an endeavor. It will be very expensive, and yeah, you need a lot of resources for that. but intermediate maybe solution can be GPTs. And I tried some for some my projects, and yeah, I mean I got better results than without GPTs, without any without uploading any contextual information. So that was a kind of result of these trials. So I will not take much of your time. So thank you for your attention, and thank you for using AI as an assistant.